Bonjour, salut. My name is Aminata Vandi, and welcome to French Learning with Vandi. Today, I am recording on my cell phone. I want to see how it will come out. And so, the topic for today's session is gender in the French language. Right, so, what is gender in the French language? In English, we have gender or title associated only to people. For example, Mr. Jackson, Miss Jackson, Mrs. Jackson. So when you see titles like Mr. or Miss or Mrs., that could tell you that it's a female or male. That'll give out the gender in English, and so that concept of gender, it's in English, it's only with people, only people. Where when you see Mr., Miss, or Mrs., you could tell that this it's a man or woman, etc. So that concept is only with people in the English language. In the French language, that concept of gender title is not only with people, it's also with objects or things, like literally. Yeah, like whether you're referring to a pen, a paper, a pencil, a library, a computer, etc. Like all of those, like literally have gender associated to them. They could either be masculine or feminine, and but yeah, like I said, in English, gender title is only with people, not with objects or things. All right, and now I am gonna write that on the board so that you guys will see. I'm gonna explain in visual terms so that you guys will see what I'm trying to explain. All right, and so like I was saying, in English, we have a gender title only with people. Okay, so for instance, like in English, when you see Mr., you could tell that the next noun will be a male, Mr. Jackson, etc., or Mr. Johnson, etc. And then when you see Mrs. or Miss in English, you could tell that the next noun will be a female or feminine, Mrs. Jackson, Miss Jackson, etc. So like I said, we have a gender title in English, but in English, it's only with people. Mr. This, Mr. That, Miss This. It's only with people. And so when you hear that, you could tell that the noun following will be, you could tell the gender of the noun following. When you hear Mr. Jackson, you could tell that the noun following will be a masculine. Or if you hear Miss or Mrs., you could tell that the noun that will follow next will be a feminine. So in English, that concept is only with people, with human beings. It's not with things, not with objects or things. But in French, that concept of gender title is also with object. It's not only with people, but it's also with objects, both living and non-living things, like anything, like literally, like even let's say like a pen, a paper, a couch, a sofa, etc. Like everything have a gender title in front of it. All right, and so all right, and so in English, when you see Mr., like I said, that will be an indication that the noun following will be masculine, and so, and in French, it will be this word, low, le. Whenever you see le in front of a noun or object, or in front of a spelling, whenever you see le, that's an indication that it's masculine. Just as in English, when you see Mr., it's a sign that the noun following will be masculine. In French, when you see le, that's an indication that the noun following will be masculine. That's how in French. Like I said, in English, that concept is only with people, but in French, that concept, it goes across the board, like with everything, anything on earth. Um, they have everything on earth has a gender associated to it. So whenever you see le in French, it's an indication that the noun or the word or the object that is in front of, it's masculine. All right, and then in English, when you see Miss or Mrs., that's an indication that the noun following next will be feminine, right? If you hear, when you hear Miss this, Miss that, you could tell that, it's a feminine noun that will follow next. And so if we apply that same concept in French, when you hear when you see the word la, when you see le, that's an indication that the noun following will be feminine or female. La, whenever you see la voiture, la maison, la poisson, whenever you see la, the noun following, even if you don't know the meaning of the word following, even if you don't know the meaning of the word or what that word is, but just know for sure that the gender of that word is feminine. See la in front of it. Just as when you see Miss or Mrs. in English, it's an indication that it's feminine. The same way, whenever you see la in front of a word in French, it's an indication that it's feminine. Like I said again, the concept of gender title in English, it's only with people, but in French, it's not only with people, it's also with object or things. Yeah, and we don't have anything like that in English. In English, it's only with people, but in French, with everything else on earth, has to be classified either masculine or feminine, and you classify things based on their spelling. Most of the time, the feminine words will end in e or son. But yeah, and then when you see le in front of nouns or things, they are masculine. They are masculine. You cannot miss that. And then when you see la, they are feminine. All right, two more things. Also in French, whenever you see L apostrophe, like L with an apostrophe, the word that will follow next will be a vowel. That's an indication that a vowel is coming up. Whenever you see L apostrophe, you can't miss that. It will be a vowel. All right. Sorry, I'm kind of quiet when I'm writing. I'm sorry. All right. So yeah, whenever you see L apostrophe, it's an indication that the next word will be a vowel. All right. One more. We're almost done. One more. les. This is plural. Whenever you see les in front of a word, a noun, object, anything, whenever you see les, that's an indication that the next word or the next noun will be plural. It's plural. You can't miss that. Plural. Sorry. Plural. All right. So that is that. I'm gonna go over it one more time. All right. Let's see. In English, we have gender title like Mr. This, Mr. That, Miss This, Mrs. This, and in English, when we see that, that's how we classify the gender by that gender title like Mr. This, we'll know that this will be masculine, or Miss This, Mrs. This. We could say that the next noun will be feminine. And so in English, that concept is only with people, not with objects or things, only with people. Right? When you see Mr. This, it has to be masculine. When you see Miss or Mrs. This, it has to be feminine. And it's only with people. In English, that concept is only with people. Right? But in French, the concept of gender title in front of things is not only with people, but it's also with objects. Like when you want to say the table, for example, you have to put their gender title in front of them, like lo or la. When you see Ellie, it's masculine. When you see Ellie, it's feminine. And also when you see L apostrophe, it's an indication that the next word coming up will be a vowel. And when you see les, the next word coming up, or the noun that follows, is plural. All right, I hope you guys can. All right, and that is all I have for today. French learning with Vandi.